Story 1. This is my first time posting. This happened 20 plus years ago. I'm not sure why that matters, but I see it in many of the posts. I worked for the family business repiping mobile homes. Because I wasn't married and didn't have kids, my buddy and I were the out-of-town crew. We traveled all over the state. A typical week would consist of 10 houses over 5 days. 2 a day, Monday, Friday. That was the requirement. 10 houses must be plumbed a week. No exceptions. We had a backlog of work. After my buddy got well, we could easily plumb 2 houses in 6-7 hours. The other crews typically took 10 hours for 2 houses. Since we were paid by the house, it didn't matter how fast or slow you were, so long as you did 10 houses a week. I've always hated working 5 days a week, so we decided each Monday morning to look at our work orders and rearrange the schedule, so we did 2 houses Monday, travel time getting to the first job, 3 on Tuesday and Wednesday, then 2 on Thursday, leaving us all day Friday to sleep in, explore whatever town we were in, and enjoy a 3-day weekend. This went on for some time, until my girlfriend wanted to go out of town for a 3-day weekend. So, we finished Thursday, drove to the shop, dropped off my van, and left for the weekend. Friday afternoon I got a call. It's the boss. Where are you? New York. Boss, obviously confused, asked, New York? What do you mean? I mean I'm currently in New York City. What's up? Lots of confused questions and snarky answers back and forth. Why did you cancel your Friday jobs? Is something wrong with your van? It's at the shop. He asked me. I didn't cancel any jobs. Boss, now more confused by how I did 10 jobs in 4 days than how I was in NY without their knowledge, asked, How did you do 10 jobs in 4 days? I decided it would be easiest to tell them I've been doing this for a while. Mad, absolute fury that I'd been claiming my per diem and hotel while not working Fridays. Sunday night turns into a lecture of how I should be doing more for the business. I remind them we're the only crew that goes out of town. I'm told from here on out I'm doing 13 jobs a week. I ask if the other crews will be expected to do the same considering they all work locally. Nope, just me, so I plan to comply. I tell my cousin to schedule our next week in the city furthest away. About a 5-hour drive. We were normally only scheduled for 9 jobs for that city as the first day drive took up so much time. No need to remind anyone of that, the number is 13 this week. So we head out on Monday. No changes. No tweaks. Just do what's scheduled. Obviously we can't do 2 on Monday. Half our day was spent driving. It didn't help that we weren't exactly rushing. So around 4 we call the office and tell them to call the customer. We won't be able to get to them. The customer is furious and asks when they'll get rescheduled. No idea. Fast forward to Thursday. While finishing job 10, we call the office and inform them we're out of material. No pipe, no fittings, no wholesale house to go to. Nothing. Please tell the boss to bring us more. I get a call from the boss. What happened? He asks. The van can only hold 10 jobs worth of material. That's the way you set it up. Can't you go to X and get more pipes? That's 2 hours away each way. We'll have to cancel another job. Plus, they charge double what we pay in town. Why didn't you say you couldn't do 13 jobs? I did. You said I was being lazy. I thought you meant you didn't want to do 13 jobs, not that the truck couldn't hold enough material. I didn't want to do 13, and you set the trucks up. It's your truck. He unhappily says, I'll meet you at your first job at 7 a.m. Me, with a smile you can hear over the phone, see you in the morning, boss. An exhausted boss drops off pipe and fittings at 7. Hey, do you want to help knock out the Monday job we canceled? Or do you want us to stay another night? I ask him. Hotel, per diem. We went back to 10 jobs a week after that. Story 2. This took place a few years back, and I was basking in the glory that was Yankee Candle, enjoying the smells. God, I love candles. Coconut pudding. Now I am happily perusing my way around the store, picking up votives. $1 votive sale. So I now have a basket of about 20 votives and a few jar candles. Before me, sporting the classic "I want to talk to your manager" haircut, is Karen. She has a candle in her hand, and she looks angry. Excuse me. I was ignoring her because I had no idea she was talking to me. Now, please don't judge me for this, but it's relevant as to why I don't look like I work there. I'm dressed in black clothes, black makeup, and neon pink and black hair. I have facial piercings and visible tattoos. I turn away, the candle still in hand, and this witch grabs a handful of my hair and yanks. I saw some employees rush me as I screeched, but the damage was done. I flung my basket, 2 of 4 jar candles broke by the way, and I spun around and smashed her in the jaw with the jar candle in my hand. She crumpled to the ground, bleeding from the mouth and hyperventilating about my manager. I'm curled up in a ball on the store floor, having an anxiety attack and doing the ugly cry. The police get called. At first, the police had me on my face getting cuffed. I look like a delinquent, so I'm ugly sobbing more and freaking out. They won't let me have my Ativan that I keep on hand. In fact, they frisk me and take all my stuff. And this woman has a smug look on her face. Well, 2 employees rush the cops and explain what went down, and tell them they have video proof. To say she went pale, she also started yelling about she shouldn't ignore a customer. Now she's full on crying, getting cuffed, mascara running down the face, dried blood on the mouth. The police uncuff me, but tell me I have to stay put while they review security videos. They let me have my Ativan, and the manager gives me a song and dance apology. At this point, there's a crowd. I want to go home, so thankfully I was allowed to sit in the back of the store while I cleaned up. In the end, she was held responsible for broken merchandise and assault, and because this was now a criminal charge, I found out. This wasn't the first time she pulled this and assaulted employees of a store. She got off with a slap on the wrist, mandatory anger management, and a fine. Karen, I hope you learned, you entitled witch. Edit. Okay, so I've had some weird messages about specifically the police. I don't hold it against them that they arrested me first. I don't. To an onlooker who was just coming to the scene, I was younger and appeared unharmed. The other woman, on the other hand, had a bloody mouth. With no prior knowledge as to what really happened, it looked like I clocked a middle-aged woman in the mouth with a candle-filled glass jar. The police uncuffed me with an apology, which was more than I ever got from the lady who yanked my hair. Yeah, I had to stick around until they reviewed the tapes. But they at least let me sit in the employee lounge, rather than let me stay on display to the people who were gawking. While I don't condone violence, and I have stated this in a reply, my reaction was, well, it was reactionary. I would rather have diffused it in another way. It's totally inappropriate to touch people without consent, let alone assault someone just because they ignore you. And the fact she had a history of assaulting retail workers, I hope for the sake of others that her punishment stuck this time around. And as for my mental state, this happened some time back. I was flinchy for a few weeks after the fact. I've always had anxiety in public places around people, I don't know, but the event made it worse. I appreciate the well wishes, and I promise you all, I'm okay now. Story 3. A little background. I started working at a bike shop about a month after the lockdown started. Bike shops were still open because supposedly they count as necessary transportation. Anyway, I had barely any school and my MTB team wasn't practicing anymore, so I thought it was a good time to make some dough. I arrived at the bike shop around 9 a.m. and checked in with the owner/manager. I was only allowed to work at the cash register and some occasional customer service since it was only my second week on the job. The other guys got to work on bikes in the back since a large part of our business was bike repair. The day was going pretty smoothly. 2 people brought their bikes in for repair and 1 family bought 3 bikes for their kids. But then, she came in. This lady came in huffing and puffing with her 2 kids being dragged behind her, plus one of the kids' bikes, no mask and all. I'm like, oh no, I can't do this today. Me? Could you put your mask on? It's store policy right now. To my surprise, she said, oh, sorry, I forgot. Me thank you. What can I do for you today? I want to return my son's bike. It doesn't work anymore. We don't allow returns on bikes, but have a 1-month warranty that covers minor and easy-to-fix damages. Sorry, we don't allow returns. We will fix your bike on us if the warranty is still active. Ugh, fine. Okay, we will need a receipt or proof of purchase. Couldn't you just look my name up? No, I can't. She proceeds to rifle through her purse for 5 minutes trying to find the receipt, and when she does, she slaps it on the counter. There. I took a look at the receipt, and the date on the receipt was from 7 months ago. Me sorry, but you bought this bike 7 months ago. So? Our warranty only covers 1 month of use. What does that mean? It means we can't fix it for free. Well, why not? I just told you. She interrupts me, in a very threatening voice. Just give me a refund and I'll leave. What? No. The repairs for your bike won't be very much, around $45. I don't want it fixed anymore. I want my money back. Ma'am, we don't accept returns on bikes. If you really don't want it anymore, you could donate it to charity. I've had it with you. Where's the manager? After she said these fateful words, something even worse happened. I had forgotten about the kids she had brought in. I heard a loud crash and looked up to see one of the bikes that was hanging from the racks on the floor. Entitled Kid Ops. I scream at the kid, "What are you doing?" The entitled mother screams back at me, "Don't talk to my son like that." Me, trying to recompose myself, "Your son just knocked down a $4,000 bike. You are being so rude. My son didn't mean to, right, baby?" The kid says, "Yeah, it was an accident." My boss burst out from the back, wondering what was going on. The boss says to me, "Why is that bike on the floor?" I replied, "This lady's son knocked it down." My boss rushes over to the fallen bike to assess the damage. The frame is cracked. This was a carbon frame bike, which means if the frame's cracked, the bike is done. This kid right here knocked it over. Yep. The entitled mother says, "He only knocked it over because your employee was harassing me." Me and my boss said at the same time, "What?" My boss then says, "Lady, I don't care why it was knocked over, but I trust my employee more than you, and I'm going with what he said. I won't make you pay the full price of the bike since only the frame is damaged. I will need $2,000 from you." What? Why do bikes cost so much? You don't have to pay it right now. We could arrange a deal for monthly payments. I am not paying for anything. You should be paying me for all I have gone through in this shop. My son did nothing wrong. It was your stupid employee who made it fall. I said, "What? How did I make it fall? I wasn't even close to the bike." The other kid starts to cry because of all the yelling. "Now look what you've done." The kid cries louder, so she says, "I'm calling the cops for trying to cheat me out of money and harassing me and my kids." I look over to my boss, and he kind of shakes his head, telling me just to let the cops come. Once the cops came, she told her bogus story of how we were harassing her and her kids and trying to cheat her out of money. She said I had knocked the bike down and was lying about damages to get money from her. She also said when she tried to return a non-functional bike, we rejected her. My boss told me to just let her dig a hole. When the police asked for our side of the story, he walked the officers into the back room and showed them security footage of her son knocking down the bike. He then explained our return policy and our warranty. Finally, he showed them the damages to the bike that was knocked over, confirming that we were not lying about that. She was arrested and had to pay a bunch more than what she originally would have had to. She also got 2 weeks in jail for resisting arrest and lying to officers. Story 4. Okay, so maybe it's cliché, but let me start by saying that I've been a long-time lurker and literally never expected something like this to happen to me. I regularly giggle to myself about how exaggerated or made up the stories on here are because no one actually acts like this, right? Apparently I was very mistaken about just how entitled people can be, because this story happened to me yesterday. Please enjoy. A little background to start off. I started a new job with the county about a month ago. I was hired to be a juvenile correctional specialist. It's not a glamorous job, but I absolutely make sure my clients are safe, afforded every right they are entitled to, and I treat them with respect and dignity. That being said, I don't live in a great area and my uniform looks a lot like a police officer's uniform, so I never wear it outside of work if I can help it, just because I don't want to deal with potential issues, which seems to be the right call after this incident. It is also important to note that during my orientation, my training officer spent a literal hour explaining the many ways that are appropriate and inappropriate when it comes to representing oneself. For instance, in our county, I am considered, and therefore legally allowed to refer to myself as an officer of the peace, an officer of the county, an officer of the court, and a correctional officer. At no point, and for no reason am I ever legally allowed to represent myself as, or even imply that I am an officer of the law, a police officer, or any other title of that nature. If someone assumes I am a cop, I legally have to correct them, or I could potentially lose my job, be fined, or even arrested based on the situation. I will point out, however, that my uniform and badge carry the same legal obligations and repercussions when it comes to damage, theft, etc., because it's all considered county property. So yesterday I was done working double and got ready to leave work. I hadn't expected the forced overtime, so I hadn't checked the weather for the evening shift. Lo and behold, I had left my windows cracked through a rainstorm, and my extra shirt and jacket had gotten soaked. This would have been fine because it was dark, so I wasn't worried about someone seeing me go from my car to my house, but we were out of milk, and I really needed to stop at the Mart of Walls. Normally I'd just take off my uniform shirt and badge and throw on my extra shirt, but I didn't feel like donning a soggy top or going into the store in the tank top I wear under my uniform shirt. Plus, it was 15 minutes till close and I was just running in and out, so what's the worst that could happen? I ran in, grabbed the milk, grabbed some ice cream, because why not, and headed to self-checkout. The line was pretty long and wrapped around towards the entrance, so I was in the entitled lady's direct line of sight when she stepped through the doors. While she didn't fit the mold of the traditional Karen, I think she still counts. She was an older woman, probably in her 50s, in heels and a rather low-cut sundress. Fake tan and fake hair. I clock her making a beeline straight for me in my periphery and continue staring straight forward because something about her seemed a little off. Maybe it was the odd gait with the slight stumble every few steps, or the fact that she was kind of mumbling to herself, but I had a feeling she was under the influence of something. She got about 5 feet away, and I could smell the alcohol emanating from her. She then reached out and firmly tapped my shoulder. The following is our conversation, nearly word for word as best as I can remember. "Excuse me, I'm so glad I made it before they closed," she tells me. "That's great," I continue, staring forward, attempting to ignore her. "Well, I just came in because I really need milk for my kids' breakfast tomorrow. Do you think you could help me out a bit?" "Sure, the milk is on the wall at the back of the store. Just head straight back down that main aisle and you'll walk straight into the dairy section." She looks at me dumbly for several seconds. "Well, that's not really what I meant. You see, I noticed that you have the same kind of milk that my family drinks, so I thought maybe you could let me have it, so that way I can get home to my kids sooner." "No thank you. I'm good." "Wait, what does that mean? I can't have the milk?" "That is correct. You can take 3 minutes to walk back and get your own milk, just like I did. That's how groceries work." Again she stares at me for several moments, trying to process the situation through the haze of intoxication. "You are being incredibly rude and you shouldn't even be in here." "How do you figure that?" "My tax dollars aren't supposed to be paying for the police to go shopping while on duty. Now give me that milk, and I want your badge number so that I can talk to your superiors about your inappropriate behavior." "Ma'am, I am not a police officer and I am not on duty. I just happen to be coming home from work and still have my uniform on." She was now starting to shriek and attract attention. "You are obviously lying. I can see your badge right there. I won't let you get away with lying just to protect your job." At this point, she begins to claw at the badge-shaped patch that is sewn onto the upper right shoulder of my uniform shirt. Not wanting to escalate things further, I took a step back and grabbed my real badge to show her. Now it's not like a metal badge or a jacketed ID like cops or detectives carry. It's literally just a laminated card in a clear pouch attached to a retractable clip on my belt. The pocket also contains my electronic access card to the jail itself. The whole jail, not just the juvenile side, which was about to become a huge deal. Me, holding up my badge. See how it says, Corrections Specialist, not Police Officer. Bold as anything, this crazy drunk reaches out, snatches my badge out of my hands and rips it off my belt. Now at this point the bystanders that had been nervously standing and muttering amongst themselves went silent because, like most sane and rational human beings, they realize that it's never a good idea to take the badge of someone in a uniform, whether they are a cop or not. I myself took a moment to respond because I truly could not understand the idiocy of stealing anything, let alone a badge, over a gallon of milk. I would have been within my rights to grab her and force her to give it back. But again, I didn't want things getting out of hand, so I decided to reason with her. Ma'am, I don't think you realize the consequences of what you've just done. That is the badge of a county officer, and stealing one is a misdemeanor if you're lucky. However, behind that badge is my swipe card for the jail. You've literally just stolen a key to the county jail, which is a felony with a potential 10-year sentence. This is absolutely true. By the way, I think you should probably hand it back to me right now because I don't think a gallon of milk is really worth a decade of your life. Karen, starting to look a little nervous by now, said, "That's not what I meant to do." Looking at the bystanders for support, you saw how she was being rude to me, right? I was just trying to get her information and she wouldn't give it to me. I didn't do anything wrong, right? Unbeknownst to either of us, one of the customers ahead of us was either an off-duty cop or retired. I couldn't tell which. He piped up with, "Ma'am, I'd do as the officer suggests if I were you. I can't slap cuffs on you right now, but I've got a few guys on speed dial that would happily do it for me. And since they patrol this area, I'd say you've only got a couple minutes to make your choice." And with that, he pulled out his phone and started swiping. All the color drained out of Karen's face, and she basically flung my badge at me as she rushed out of the store, mumbling loudly something about how it was just a gallon of milk. I thanked the older guy and told him not to bother calling anyone. Everyone got through the checkout like responsible adult human beings, and I got to head home and enjoy my ice cream, having learned that I should really just do my shopping on my days off. Edit. Not that it matters in context of the story, but I'm a smallish woman. It makes it a little bit funnier to me since I don't think I look anything like a stereotypical cop. Yes, I know there are many fabulously skilled women of all shapes and sizes in all branches of law enforcement. Also, I do agree with many of you posting that the cops should have been called because she was intoxicated. I probably should have thought that through better. All I can say is that the whole situation really threw me because her behavior was just so out there. I was just glad that she finally left me alone before it became a huge deal and didn't really think beyond that. I did check the local accident reports this morning, and thankfully no one of her description was reported to have been in an accident due to drinking. So that's lucky. Thanks for all the like and the awards. Story 5. My mom died in 2011, right around the time that my paternal aunt Cookie was left by her husband after beating cancer for a third time. Now, my aunt is very physically changed from all the chemo and radiation. She had gained a lot of weight, lost most of her hair, and had aged a bit faster due to a lack of hormones from having every trace of womanhood cut from her body. I have extreme anxiety, stemming from agoraphobia, so my Aunt Cookie was my safe place for the duration of the whole event, which lasted several days. This consisted of everyone being at my parents' summer house in Mexico, basically standing around, chatting, drinking, and eating everything in sight. This funeral had every family member, plus people who were aunts and uncles that I had never met in my life. Not being a drinker, and not knowing a lot of the people walking around, my aunt and I sat down to have a cigarette each and catch up on our lives, and whatnot. Suddenly, while we're mid-sentence in her cancer update, a Karen that I had never set eyes on in my life, starts loudly going, ugh. She swats at the air, like our cigarette smoke is even anywhere near her, and makes a big fuss. Karen says, "Oh, that's so disgusting. How can you behave in such a disgusting manner at a funeral?" Me. My mom was a smoker, so she'd approve. Karen, she was your mother. She didn't teach her daughter how to be a lady, I see. And you, talking to my aunt. You should know better. What do you have to say for yourself? Smoking in front of this child. I was 33. My Aunt Cookie takes off her sad cancer hat and strokes the small tuft of hair she had left in the front, and booming her voice, but not yelling, says, for all to hear, "What's this gonna do? Give me cancer." Karen looked uncomfortable after the hat came off, but still managed to look insulted and walked away. I could hear the internal here. After a millisecond of silence, I giggled, snorted, and laughed until my side hurt. Everyone else in the room just kinda smiled, though I think I heard a few snickers. I asked my aunt, "Who was she?" My aunt said, "I don't know. Some weirdo that probably came for the free food." My aunt rocks. She's been in remission since 2012. Story 6. In nursing school, you have clinical days. The day before clinical, you have to go to the hospital and pick a patient you'll work with the next day. You also have a chance to work as a CNO while in school to gain more experience and make a little money, because it is difficult to work full-time and go through nursing school. There were 2 hospitals in my small town. I worked at Hospital A in the ICU as a CNA. My clinicals were in the larger hospital, Hospital B. I worked a shift at my hospital and ran over to the other one across town to pick my patient and get my pre-clinical work done. It was about 30 minutes after 7 when I got there. Most hospital shifts you work are 12 hours, 7 to 7. I knew I was going to be on a med-surg floor, so I got on the elevator to ride up and looked through my paperwork to find out what unit I'd be at the next day. A lady in a pantsuit with a hospital badge was already on the elevator and gave me a look like I'd peed in her Cheerios. Okay, I just moved to the side and finally found my paper letting me know what floor and unit I needed to go to. In a really ugly tone, the pantsuit asked me, "Where are you headed?" Staying polite, "I'm heading to 3N. She slammed the button, and I just said, "Thank you." As we were riding, she turned to me and started chewing me out. "It's not appropriate for you to be coming in 20 minutes after shift change. We've been understaffed all day and those units are slammed right now." I just kinda stared at her for a second and thought, I'm not going to be disturbing the nurses, and if I have to wait on a chart, that's fine. I don't intend on interrupting the report, but I just said, "Okay?" If anything, her face got angrier. My floor arrived, and she stepped out with me and kept pace with me as I headed to the nurse's station. I went to the side and took a look at the assignment board to see if anyone had a diagnosis I hadn't worked with before. Then sat down out of the way and waited quietly because the charge nurses were still discussing assignments. When they finished, I'd ask the charge nurse if there was a patient I should pick. I'd do this because sometimes there were interesting procedures, or I'd get a chance to practice my skills the next day. As I was waiting, Pantsuit Lady watched me, and when she saw me sit down, she immediately snapped her fingers at me and pointed down to the floor and said, "You, come, here." The voice was nasty enough that it stopped several people mid-report to find out what was going on. I stood up and approached her, and she grabbed my sleeve and pulled me over closer to the charge nurses. Ignoring me and talking directly to the charge nurses, she proceeded to tell them that I was their aide, and she wanted them to make sure I was written up for being late. I realized then that she thought I worked there. I was a lot less confrontational or aggressive then. But I never really got the chance to say anything as she jerked her hand away from me and wiped it like she just touched poo. Looked at me with a face I can only describe as sour lemon smugness and walked away. The charge looked at me and said, "We already have an aide, but sure, could use you. Let me see how." She trailed off as I held out my hand and said, "I don't work here. I'm with School X, and I'm here to pick out a patient for clinicals tomorrow. Does that lady always treat people like they're dogs? The charge nurse stared at me for a second and then started laughing and said, "Stupid witch. Don't mind her. We all hate her." She then asked, "How much longer do you have?" I replied that I will graduate in 6 months. I also asked if they had any interesting procedures, or if they had a patient that a one-to-one student nurse would make easier to handle. She also asked where I planned on working after I graduated. I just looked down the hallway where the pantsuit had gone and just said, "Well, not here," which made her laugh even more. I had a truly relaxing clinical the next day with a sweet elderly lady with dementia and a minor medical condition. We folded laundry together to keep her busy and to keep her from pulling at her surgical sites. What was really fun about it is that the next semester, when representatives come to try to recruit you to the hospital, I got to reply to a question about why I wasn't interested in their hospital. I gotta say that I didn't appreciate the way they treated their staff, and tell the story. There was recognition in their eyes when I described the lady, and they shook their heads when I told them about the event. Plus, I knew that my hospital was waiting for me to graduate so I could come to work in the ICU, which was my dream at the time, and it was for a bit more pay than the other hospital was offering anyway.